You know what? I was going to talk about David Wong, but now I just kind of want to talk about Crack.com. Crack.com used to be a magazine that was kind of like Weekly World News. You know, if you remember, like Alligator Lady Gives Birth, whatever, to Cat Boy or Bat Boy, which I got into a lot of those, but that had nothing to do with Crack.com. But when I was a kid, I always bought those magazines, and it makes me very sad that we don't have access to those in the grocery store anymore. It's really, 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 like, I think that was the first break from whatever parallel universe we were in personally. I don't think it was Harambe. I think it was them. But Crack.com is a humor website that has articles, and also recently, like over the past like 15 years, started producing YouTube content. And some of their YouTube content was by people that wrote the articles. Michael Swaim was the GOAT, and then there was, they called him T-Bone in Agents of Cracked, but he wasn't really T-Bone. Soren, like from The Hobbit. Anyway, Soren was another one. He was like this gorgeous, pretty boy. And then there was the chick, I can't remember her name, but she was like she wasn't feminist necessarily. She just was really loud and really sick of not being invited to the table. So they made her a table. Agents of Cracked is with Dan O'Brien, who also did Pop Culture Disorder. And Pop Culture Disorder is when he would just like spaz out and talk about everything pop culture that pissed him off or made him happy, or, you know, you're an idiot if you don't like this kind of stuff. He was just so freaking just charming, and I adored him. And he talked with like real rapid fire dialogue that just like you could watch it and watch it again and get new stuff out of it, you know. All right, let me over. Sorry. Thanks. I'm from California. We can't drive. So Dan O'Brien and Michael Swaim did an Agents of Cracked series on YouTube where they got together and talked about, well, they didn't talk about anything. Actually, it was just basically Dan O'Brien was supposedly hired as Michael Swaim's handler, and shenanigans ensued in a incredibly chaotic, toxic, and trauma-inducing Cracked.com headquarters environment. The chief of Cracked, or whatever they call him, editor-in-chief, he was like this like really hard, almost like that veteran from Tropic Thunder, the guy with the hands but no hands. He was like that kind of a character. Anyway, and they did After Hours was Michael Swaim, Dan O'Brien, Soren, and the girl. And it's all four of these people that supposedly meet at a diner after hours and discuss whatever topic comes up. But it's all scripted, so it's not, there's no dead space like what you get with my videos. It's, again, rapid fire dialogue debates, and they kind of like take the best articles that have been written by Crack.com and put it in debate form. Then they have a podcast that I don't know if they still do it anymore, and if they do it, it's not with the same people, but they have like, you know, just regular debates, like it's all very like, okay, stories that should have been made into horror movies but haven't been, and then everybody tells true stories about stuff that they think would have made the best horror movie, and they come up with these like completely ridiculous checkpoints of whether or not it qualifies. Like, for some reason, White Children was one of the qualifiers of whether or not it was a terrifying story. Stuff like that. They come up with, it's like they analyze and dissect all pop culture in general. And Crack.com was not exclusive, and I don't think they are anymore either. They're very open to anyone writing an article. You produce an article, and if it's good, if they accept it, they'll pay you for it. And so, you know that little girl from Matilda that nobody knew what happened to her when she grew up, but she was from the original Matilda with Danny DeVito? She wrote an article about what it's like to be a child star and what it's like to go through the awkward teen stage. And it was incredibly well-versed, well-written, and just honest. There wasn't like a whole Me Too thing going on. There wasn't a whole lot of like, it was just her explanation of what it's like to grow up and no longer be the desirable, adorable girl, and to go through your awkward teenage under the spotlight, and then to be able to relax afterwards when nobody recognizes you. David Wong, one of my favorite authors of all time. A lot of these people ended up being good authors of, chaotic fiction. But David Wong was his username on crack.com, or his pen name. And then he started producing actual books under his actual name, which is Jason Parkin. But he initially, he just had some whatever job that he went to school for and he was supposed to be focused on, but he became so successful in writing these articles that it became his full-time job, and he was brought in under the cloak of crack.com. And he wrote articles about 10 ways you'll die in an apocalypse and stuff like that. I don't think that was the actual title, but one of the ones that really moved me was, it was something like you're useless and here's why. And it was something about, what skill do you have? What do you produce in yourself? Do you have a hobby that's going to come in handy in an apocalypse or in a survivalist situation? Are you otherwise a leech?
Waiting for Perry.
And
Paired.
Shut up. Nobody cares about Perry. I don't know. It was just, there was a lot of that stuff where every article, it was list form articles, so it kind of felt like BuzzFeed, but it was funny and it was good. It was oriented as a humor website. And their videos include things like, why romantic comedies are all secretly horror movies or slasher films, and just breaking down each romantic comedy into the essence of every character on there is an absolute psychopath. And then it changes the way you see romantic comedies, because you're if any other actual human being would have done this, they would have gone to prison. But because it's a romantic comedy, they did, let's see, I'm trying to think, horror movies, and how the monsters of horror movies are examples of the society that they originate from. So during the Cold War we had vampires, and after that all the bad guys in movies, they were all Russian looking. Even in Rocky there was the Russian guy, and then there, later on they all just slightly became a little bit more Arabic-esque, just kind of nobody really specified we're trying to make you hate these guys, these specific people. It was just an overall general brownwashing, if you will. And they were also talking about how why in America all of our scariest stories are kind of in the southern woods, or in the woods in general, out where nature is, and it's because that's where we lost our humanity, because that's kind of where we started doing the slave stuff. It's out in the southern wilderness. We got a lot of southern horror movies that are really popular. Hills Have Eyes comes to, I don't know if that's necessarily southern. Do the Alps count, Appalachian count as southern? I feel like it does. But anyway, then how in the UK their scary movies are all kind of city oriented, because they lost their humanity with the Industrial Revolution. That's just one of the videos. It's so good. It's so much fun. David Wong wrote a book at the urging of his readers called John Dies at the End. And there was a movie with Paul Giamatti. Paul Giamatti was in this movie. And the guy that plays John was perfect. Everyone else was kind of there. The guy that plays David, in the book, David's a fat guy. He's supposed to be the fat nerd guy. It was supposed to be the story where the fat nerd guy gets the girl, essentially, and is actually successful, and he's kind of not a loser, but they just made an attractive guy, whatever, things happen. There's a lot of changes in the movie. Still one of my favorite movies, and I can't recommend it to anyone because you kind of have to read the book to kind of enjoy it or get it. But Paul Giamatti's freaking great. And he says the N-word. And it's not that bad. It's still kind of like a shock, but I'll explain. Let me explain. So John dies at the end, John is a character based on another article writer for crack.com. I think he got in a little bit of trouble, but I don't pay attention to that stuff as much. But the character is based on John. And he is very, like, if you've seen Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Zaphod Beeblebrox, or even Tyler Durden from Fight Club, just this, like, larger than life, and also, but he's got this, like, dumb foolishness to him, where he's just punning around and chaotic, and stuff just works for him, but it shouldn't, and then it works against him in the worst ways. And then David he works at a used video store in this freaking nothing town. And he just shuffles along in his turgid existence with he has a place that he likes, it's alright, he has a dog that he loves, and that's about it. He doesn't have a lot going on. He doesn't have any goals or ambitions. And then a bunch of BS happens. And there's aliens from another planet. And these guys have this strange hobby that somehow I can't remember how they explain it, but basically they're able to kind of see the paranormal, supernatural stuff, and they can kind of help people fix their problems. They don't make a lot of money doing it, but it's exciting. And David's not that into it, but John, it's his favorite thing to do, and he goes out looking for it. David's just constantly just really worried and stressed out by it. And so, like, they find a connection with somebody on one of their adventures because they need his help. And he's this kind of paranormal guru, one of those guys that's kind of hokey. And he's, like, he fills stadiums of people that are all listening to him tell him how to live their lives. And they call him for help, and now they have, like, a connection. And they're able to, like, reach out to him when they need him or whatever, and he reaches out to them and stuff. And he comes back in a later book, which is also called This Book is Full of Spiders, Seriously Dude, Don't Touch It. And I actually don't really want to say anything more about these books because I know if you open the first line of the book, you're going to read the whole thing and you're going to enjoy it. And I also really like David Wong, and I love his come up. Like, he is one of those, like, if I could do it, anyone can, which isn't true, but it makes you feel like, I don't know, maybe because I was there watching his rise. But they're fighting off aliens, and I'm gonna get the two books confused because I know one has an alien wig spider thing going on. It's an alien spider with a wig. You can't see it, but you can. Paul Giamatti plays a journalist that's interviewing David Wong, and David's trying to explain to him what's going on and what happened and all of this stuff, and then he's just not buying it, and he finally gets to the end of his story, and I'm not going to say anything else. Actually, you know what? Let me just stop. Alright, he also wrote some other stuff, and I need to restart it because I haven't read it. I think something about fancy suits was one, and it's like kind of a Neil Gaiman type of novel where unwitting hero from a normal life gets sucked into the supernatural world. All of his stuff's really bathroom humor. It's like if comedians wanted to read fantasy, that's the book for them. Like, if the dirtiest comedian, let's see, who's the dirtiest comedian? I mean, I just saw, what's his freaking name? Dang it. What's wrong with me today? The guy, he looks like an old guy. Ball hog. He hangs out with Kreischer. He calls him Burnt Chrysler. He did a dance video that was actually incredibly good. For fuck's sake, what was his name? Anyway. Tom Segura. Jeez, that really was gonna get to me. That was gonna drive me nuts. I just saw him in Columbia, South Carolina. Like, I just saw him do stand-up, And it's one, I love him, but he's freaking messed up in the head. If he wanted to read a book, this would be the book I would tell him to read. It wouldn't even matter what kind of book he wanted to read. This is the book I would tell him to read. And I don't know. It's, I ended up getting the book from the library first time. And then I bought it immediately after that. And then I bought the audiobook version immediately after that. And then every single other thing that he's put out is just great. And he writes female characters as well, too. They're not all hot, and they're not all smarter than everyone else, and they're not all ditzy girls either. And I get really tired of the trope where a woman is like, I'm gonna do what men do, and then she like half-heartedly kind of learns it, and then she's better than everyone else at it. It's like, do you have any idea how much I sucked at being a welder for the first like 4 years of doing it? And everybody said the same thing because of that stupid trope. They're like, women are actually better at welding because, you know, they're just smarter at it and they're just better at it and they're just like, you know, they're genetically like, you know, it's like, say that to anyone else, any other group. Say that say it to a black person that they're naturally going to be better at athletic. Like, we get in trouble for that because it's not freaking true. It's not right. It ain't. It's like, it's just as hard. It takes just as much skill. Don't take my flowers from me. This is hard. Same thing, but like, he doesn't do that to women in his books. They go through the same trial and error process that everyone else goes through, and it's pretty dope. I know Dan O'Brien's written books, and I know I probably read them. Oh, someone stole it. I had a book from Dan O'Brien called How to Fight Presidents, because he's a presidential dork, and I love that because I love president stuff. Like, I know too much about presidents. It says no president's ever going to date me, but I know a lot about them. And Dan O'Brien wrote a book called How to Fight Presidents, or How to Win a Fight with the Presidents, or something like that. Something that's going to get him on a watch list. And I brought it to work because, like, I don't ever have time to read it, and somebody stole it. And I normally, when someone steals a book, and it's happened more times than I can count, when someone steals one of my books, I just say, the book is theirs now. It's good that they got a hold of it, because stolen books are magic. So that's fine. But not this one. I hope that they suffer for stealing that book, because I hadn't gotten to read it. But yeah, Dan O'Brien. I love Dan O'Brien. He's so freaking funny. And he has that, like, bashful, nerdy, like, oh, shucks, I guess, you know. And then he babbles off some super smart shit. I don't know. I really miss Crack.com. I know Small Beans. Michael Swaim is doing Small Beans. And I really get into that podcast. But I kind of miss seeing him on screen. And he did a after hours, like, he kind of did this dorky supplanting after hours thing. Like, he made his own version of it in his apartment, and it was really, really great. I don't know if he kept doing it. I enjoyed it because it had a lot of the same essences. Because, like, the people that wrote the articles that they used to make these debate stream forums, they were the guys acting it out. So, like, they could recreate it themselves. He ended up leaving Cracked on his own. I don't think he got fired. I can't remember. I think he got offered a good job, but either way, he was really open and honest about his alcohol issues, and how he just became a worse and worse friend over time, and how he was much heavier of an alcoholic than I was. So it's like, that's an even deeper ditch to crawl your way out of, so congratulations to him for that. He was drinking like a fifth day type of thing. But he was always this really corny, charming, kind of Labrador. I hate when people use that word. It's like, we're not allowed to equate women or black people to animals, but we can call men Labradors. Anyway. But that's like his persona, is just this wholesome, goofy, also not quite sure how to human. I think they all kind of had that, but he was more in a I don't care kind of way. Like, oh, you feel things. That's annoying. And then he does something dorky and funny. Whereas, like, Dan O'Brien, he did the whole I don't know how to human thing because he's crippled with social anxiety and self-deprecation. So he does it from the smarter version of whatever, but they're both very smart people. Soren, I think, got picked up by some big company to write for a cartoon series. I can't remember what that was. I need to find out. Her name was Katie, I think. And I need to find out what she's been up to, because she's one of my favorite just humans. She's like, in terms of female comedians, because I feel like she qualifies as one. Even if I don't know that she does stand-up or not, I still feel like she qualifies as a comedian. Just at least a comedy writer. But she's up there for me with Amy Poehler and Tina Fey. I mean, she doesn't have as much influence as they have, and she doesn't do the same kind of stuff they do. But I like her about that much. You know, I don't know. Female comics, it's a rough one, because it's like the ones I don't want to like are the ones that I enjoy the most, which is funny. I don't know what that says about me. But like Elijah Schlesinger, I didn't want to like her at all because she was all feminist-ish. Like, you know, girls are best, we're fierce, we're so brave. And then I just get tuned out of that stuff because I'm so tired of hearing it. And then she's just so funny in her voices and everything, and her commentary and stuff is so great. And then, you know, she just like changes her entire, everything that is hot about her becomes terrifying. The way that she does her comedy, it's so freaking funny, and her inner monologues. And then, you know, I actually enjoyed Amy Schumer before she got very far. I really kind of thought she was dirty funny, and I was so hopeful for a woman to be like that as a comic, and then she got really... I didn't dislike her for the same reason other people disliked her. I don't care what she looks like. I don't care if she's attractive, and I don't care if all of her jokes are about her vagina, so long as they're interesting. The joke itself has to be funnier than the content. So if it's an offensive joke, it has to be funnier than it is offensive in order to get through it. And the same thing, you know, she came up with some stuff that I never thought of before, and it was pretty funny. I thought it was pretty funny. And then she got famous, and then she started making generic jokes. And then we all know what happened after that. And Whitney Cummings, I like her a lot. I didn't expect to like her, because I didn't want to like her. Because she's pretty, and her stand-up is kind of overworked, I want to feel. Like her eyebrows. Sorry. That was a bitchy thing. But, yeah, I like Whitney Cummings, especially when she's in reactive mode. Like, when she's responding to, like, Andrew Schultz talking to her and just giving her crap. There's some comics that I don't like their stand-up, but I love their interview reaction type, like, giving it back type of thing. Like, let's see, Kevin Hart's one. Tiffany Haddish, same. I don't get much out of their stand-up, but when they're talking to somebody or talking, shooting the shit and talking crap, they got me dying, and I tend to rewind it. And then, like, who's that one guy? Yeah, he just died. Yeah. He was that Saturday Night Live guy. It'll come to me. Damn. I really like him. Crap, who was he? Old white guy. Gorgeous face. He's a closeted homosexual, but don't tell anyone because I'm in the closet. Yeah. Anyway. I'm off on a tangent. Crack.com. I need to check them out and see what else they're doing. I know they got a new, like, editor-in-chief, and he does a little bit of... I think he does Dan O'Brien's pop culture, obsessive pop culture disorder, whatever, and it's alright. Michael Swaim had his own video series, and it was like, all right, he's also more fun watching him as a reactor. Also, if you really want a good playlist, go to the Cracked It podcast playlist, because they made a habit of pulling up artists that nobody really knew about, so that was dope. It's like, you get stuff you usually wouldn't have heard before, you know, if I don't know, maybe like some Sage Francis type of stuff, but, yeah, I feel like I'm talking about my old friends. They were I used to, oh my gosh, I plagiarized them. I stole jokes. That's why I can't be a comic, because I've got so much stuff in my head that I'm just going to end up stealing. I'm going to steal jokes. I won't even mean to, but I'll do it because it's what gets jokes in real life. And that's what a lot of people do, is they just quote comics that are funnier than they are. And then everybody laughs and yay, you win. And then, you know, you can't take that to the stage because they'll kill you. I'll get up on stage and accidentally recite something from freaking Carlin, not even know it, or Bill Hicks, and everybody knows everything of theirs verbatim. But I don't know. Do you think we're allowed to like Dane Cook now? I feel like we're allowed to like him now. I feel like he's done his time. Like, his parents died, his brother was a jerk, his movies flopped. TJ Miller threw a fit. Like, anyone TJ Miller hates, I think we're allowed to like. I don't know. Poor TJ. I really liked him a lot. Ari Shaffir did that one comedy thing of This Can't Be Happening, or This Isn't Happening, where comedians get on stage and tell true stories, and it doesn't have to be funny. But TJ Miller had one that really was kind of heartbreaking, about having a brain tumor, and the doctors were talking about operating it, but it's in the part of his brain that's supposed to regulate speech, or his a way of translating speech, thought to speech. And he was like, so I could die, or I could be not funny. I could die, or I could be cured and be not funny. And I don't know which I'm going to choose. And then, I don't know, kind of ended there. Joey Diaz did a couple on there that I still, especially when I was drinking and I was hungover the next day and I just wanted to lay still and just be, I used to listen to his stuff. He's just got, you know, he's just this old dirty uncle, but he's got such great stories. When you're walking on ice, you might as well dance. Ha ha ha. Love him. Humor articles I never liked comedians writing books. Like David Mitchell, he's this British comic from, you know, he's in a lot of 8 out of 10 Cats and Big Fat Quiz, a bunch of like things with Jimmy Carr. He wrote some novels that were terrifying. David Mitchell, he wrote horror novels. Now that, I think that's really the answer. I don't want to read a comedian trying to be funny with the written word. Because let's be real, when they do that, I don't buy that they really wrote the book in the first place. But then, it's just not, we watch you to see you. We don't watch you to hear what you think about things. We watch you to see how you perform the way you think about things. So I don't want to read your script. And, like, how much material must they lose? They gotta lose, like, 6 hours of material just writing all of that in a novel. That sucks, right? It just feels like, you know, Somehow I Manage by Michael Scott. It feels like that. It's like, oh, jeez. It's gonna be left in the office for other people to find. And nobody will pick it up. But comedians writing horror movies, I think that is maybe my top tier genre. I think I just found my magic answer for what books I like the most. Because, like, you're already sick and twisted if you're a comedian. If you're willing to get up on stage and just kill yourself for other people's amusement and enjoyment, then you're already different than most people. And you're already probably pretty broken, just psychologically speaking. And then to take all of that with your quick-witted, you know, because the reason why they're funny is because they've had to learn to be funny in order to survive. So they take their quick-wittedness All of that twisted up with any premise. It doesn't have to matter. It doesn't even matter. It's like you can use Kevin Smith's giant poop monster from Dogma. That's another one. I don't think I want to see comedians directing. I just want to read their horror novels. That would be okay. I'd be okay with that. Yeah. I don't know. Alright, I'm home. I promised my family I wouldn't be acting up. They thought I had a boyfriend or something. Because I was on my phone all night. But anyway. Yeah, David Wong, John Dies at the End. And David Mitchell. 2 authors that wrote 2 really, really screwed up books that don't leave your psyche. And coincidentally are funny in that really dark, it's not supposed to be funny way. Anyway, have a good night. Bye, y'all.